What's up, guys? Welcome back to Michigan Muckraker. Today is October 11th of 2023, and this is going to be a very chill stream. We're going to nerd out and talk about books. I have 33 nonfiction books that I wanted to share with you, and I picked 33 just to, shout out to all those people that do a lot of research like I do, and you see the number 33 everywhere and all the speculation, and I thought it would be funny. So Nonfiction November is next month, and so I thought, why not share a bunch of nonfiction books? Now, 21 of them I am actually currently reading or I have already read, and 12 of them are on my TBR to be read the next few months into all of next year. So I'm definitely not getting them done this year, but I wanted to share them. And then, of course, I have 3 classics I'm going to share in between those 2 groups, and that's pretty much the only structure that I have. So, again, it's just chilling out, talking about books. So, thank you guys for joining me and hanging out. Now, the first one that I'm going to share with you is The Vision of the Anointed by Thomas Sowell. And if you have been here for any length of time, then you know that I've talked about this book several times already. I think it's really important to read this book to understand exactly why these individuals in the World Economic Forum and the United Nations and are doing what they're doing. So I'll read the back of it so you get an idea. And then at the end, after I share all of these books with you, if there are any that you want me to maybe read a little bit out of, because I have all these tabs, so I could just pick one and read. If you're interested, I could give you a preview at the end. So this book is a devastating critique of the mindset behind the failed social policies of the past 30 years. Thomas Sowell sees what has happened not as a series of isolated mistakes, but as a logical consequence of a vision whose defects have led to disasters in education, crime, family disintegration, and other social pathology. In this book, politically correct theory is repeatedly confronted with facts and sharp contradictions between the two are explained in terms of a whole set of self-congratulatory assumptions held by political and intellectual elites. Sound familiar? These elites, the anointed, often consider themselves thinking people. But much of what they call thinking turns out, on examination, to be rhetorical assertion, followed by evasions of mounting evidence against these assertions. It reminds me of the green energy industry, right? They believe wholeheartedly, possibly, that that is the answer no matter how much evidence comes up against their ideas. They continue to push it as if it is green, which I have the next book that I want to talk about, which happens to be about green tyranny, exposing the totalitarian roots of the climate industrial complex. And this is by Rupert Darwell, and I am currently reading, so I am not finished with this book yet, but so far every page is I want to share it with you guys. I need to write this down in my journal, and so I'm having a hard time getting through it quickly. And that's the thing with nonfiction books. They take me a long time. I used to read nothing but fantasy books, like Harry Potter is what really got me into reading. But now I'm into nonfiction, not only for the research aspects, but I just feel like I'm trying to level up. And so, not that fantasy, I still listen to fantasy audiobooks, but I really think it's important to try to level up right now. We're coming up on a big boss battle, and I don't like to be under-leveled. So, this book, the back says, Green Tyranny traces the alarming origins of the green agenda, revealing how environmental scares have been deployed by our global rivals as a political instrument to contest American power around the world. Drawing on extensive historical and policy analysis, this timely and provocative book offers a lucid history of environmental alarmism and failed policies, explaining how scientific consensus is manufactured and abused by politicians with duplicitous motives and totalitarian tendencies. So, Again, haven't finished it, but highly recommend so far. It's amazing how well he puts the truth into words, and so I hope you get a chance to read it. Now, Dragonfly, thanks for hanging out. When I wake up at night and can't sleep, I listen to books. Yes, that's awesome. Books and podcasts, pretty much all I listen to, and I definitely think audiobooks count as books, of course. I'm doing the dishes. I'm listening right now to excuse me, The Picture of Dorian Gray, because it's October, and so, the fall reading list is a little bit cultivated, but so far I like it. It's good. I'll have to let you know at the end, right? Have you guys actually read The Picture of Dorian Gray? And if so, did you like it? Let me know. So that was Green Tyranny. The next book I have, you know what? Along the same vein, we have another book that I have recommended several times in the course of my channel, and that is Behind the Green Mask, UN Agenda 21 by Rosa Koire. Now, this book is very small, but it's full of very valuable information about the United Nations Agenda 21, which is now Agenda 2030 because they've revamped it and made new goals back in 2015. Thanks, Obama. So this individual, I'll read the back. Rosa Koire unfortunately, she passed away in 2021. And it's really awful because the battle is really getting started and people are becoming aware with the 15-minute cities and everything. It all has to do with what she's talking about in this book. So she was a forensic commercial real estate appraiser, specializing in eminent domain valuation. How strange of a niche, right? Her nearly 30 years of experience analyzing land use and property value enabled her to recognize the planning revolution sweeping the nation. While fighting to stop a huge redevelopment project in her city, she researched the corporate, political, and financial interests behind it and found UN Agenda 21. Rosa speaks across the nation and is a regular blogger on her website, Democrats Against UN Agenda 21.com. So that website is still available, but it's not being kept up. I still recommend you check it out, and I'll leave a link for all of these books and that website down in the comments below. So the links will be affiliate links, which it doesn't cost you any extra. It just means that Amazon kicks me a small percentage if I sell any of the books. But you don't have to use my link. It's no big deal. I just want you to read the books. That is why I'm sharing. The next book is called The Great Reset by Michael Rectenwald. Hello, let's get this. Nope. There. Well, so this book, Unveiling the Global Agenda. Michael Rectenwald, who, by the way, is running for president. I found out this last week that Michael Rectenwald is running under the Libertarian ticket. This book, he knows what's going on. So that is one reason why if I voted, I would vote for him as of right now, because I think that someone that leads this country needs to know exactly who we're fighting and why. So Michael Rectenwald's The Great Reset is the struggle for liberty. The Great Reset and the Struggle for Liberty is a masterful and timely book of intellectual history from one of our time's most courageous dissident voices. With extensive research in various disciplines, from European history and sociology to American finance, and from AI to climate science, Rectenwald gives us a sweeping and detailed account of the false prophets of an anti-human movement threatening to engulf America and other Western democracies. This tour de force is essential reading for those engaged in the ongoing struggle to preserve man's freedom and future against totalitarianism, and a lasting testament of hope, faith, and love for the generations to come. Almost every page in this book I want to share with you guys. I share a lot with my husband. He's the only one that's here that will listen to me, but when I'm not talking to you guys, of course. So this book again, if you want to know everything that's going on, it talks about neo-Malthusian ideas, woke ideology, capitalism with Chinese characteristics. That is a really good chapter. But again, they're all very good. And at the end, he actually gives a path forward and how we can stop this movement that they are trying to bring forth. Man, need to take a sip really quick. So, now, the next book that I'd like to share with you is The Report from Iron Mountain on the Possibility and Desirability of Peace. And it doesn't have an author because this is actually written by somebody that was interviewing an individual who was part of a think tank. So that individual, excuse me. Okay, so that individual decided to share years later, after he was a part of the think tank, this information. Basically, a group of very intelligent people from a variety of different fields. They got together and they discussed. Well, you know what? I should just read the back. Sorry, guys. I'm new at this. First booktube video, okay? Report from Iron Mountain unveils a hitherto top-secret report of a government commission that was requested to explore the consequences of lasting peace on American society. The shocking results of the study, as revealed in this report, led the government to conceal the existence of the commission. They had found that, among other things, peace may never be possible, that even if it were, it would probably be undesirable, that defending the national interest is not the real purpose of war, that war is necessary, that war deaths should be planned and budgeted. Report from Iron Mountain tells the story of how the project was formed, how it operated, what happened to it. It includes the complete verbatim text of the Commission's hitherto classified report. So, this book basically is because they believed in the Malthusian theory of population, which just means that we can't overpopulate the earth. And so that's why they think war is necessary. And in the end, they say, if not war, like a world war, then possibly other means of war, like ecological, or they even mention a space program in here, which, if you're interested, I can read out of this at the very end. It shares all of the war, all of the things that could replace war and still keep the population down. So that's the whole goal. If you're not going to have war to keep the population down, you need something, because they believe we'll just overpopulate and destroy the world if somebody doesn't do something. Next up, we have War is a Racket by Smedley, Darlington, Butler. Now, this was and still is, the most decorated general that America has ever had. And this book is very short. The only reason this book looks as long as it does is because it has the original speeches and stuff as well. So it copies. There's duplicates in here, but you can see his original speeches and the drawings and everything on them. So it's a pretty cool edition. But let's just read the back, shall we? U.S. Marine Corps Major General Smedley Butler collected an award cabinet full of medals for his battlefield bravery. But perhaps his bravest act of all was to declare, after his retirement in the early 1930s, who was really winning and losing during the bloody clashes. It was business interests, he revealed, who commercially benefited from warfare. Surprise, surprise, right? War is a Racket is the title of the influential speech Butler delivered on a tour across the United States. The speech and its explained version, later published in 1935, are now reprinted here. In this introduction, Jesse Ventura relates Butler's original writings to our current political climate, explaining how right he was, how wrong our current system is, with an insightful new foreword by David. Okay, so as the title says, war is a racket for big business, and it harms us, the normal people, and our children. And so it's always to be avoided. I am for bringing home our troops from all 800 bases around the world. We should only be defending ourselves and our country. So, the next book that I would like to share with you is actually The Rise of the New Normal Reich by C.J. Hopkins. Now, he was in Germany throughout 2020, 2021, 2022, and he basically shares what happened in those times in Germany and how crazy it was. We all know now, and some of us knew then, how terrible all the authoritarianism was and how dangerous. So let's see. We'll look back on COVID-19 period as one in which governments worldwide cynically stoked panic in search of draconian laws and speech controls. We made paranoia seem sane, and asking why seems like insurrection. C.J. Hopkins was one of the only people in English willing to do the latter, and he did it with his trademark wit and bravado. So this guy is a journalist living in Germany, and he is actually going through trials right now over there. Like, he might go to jail for this book in particular. I thought it was a well documented story, basically. So if you want to know what happened in Germany during this terrible time, read this book. All right. Along those same lines, we have The True Believer by Eric Hoffer. This is thoughts on the nature of mass movements. If you haven't heard about mass movements yet, I highly suggest you go onto the Dark Horse podcast. He had Matt Desmond, I believe is his last name, and he is he studies mass movements, so he knows what he's talking about more than most. On the San Francisco docks in 1940s, Eric Hoffer wrote philosophical treatises in his spare time while living in the railroad yards. The True Believer, the first and most famous of his books, became a bestseller when President Eisenhower cited it during one of the earliest televised press conferences, which, if you don't know, Eisenhower tried to warn us about the military-industrial complex. And so, he was a general. He was the last general that we've had as a president. So him actually promoting this book and trying to let people know about it is pretty cool. Completely relevant and essential for understanding the world today, The True Believer is a visionary, highly provocative look into the mind of the fanatic and a penetrating study of how an individual becomes one. So, if you want to know why people become fanatics and they don't even know it, people that you know and love, that you never thought would become a fanatic, this explains the psychology of it. It's really easy to read, probably one of the easiest to read so far that I've shared with you, because it's just clips, small paragraphs and of wisdom, it seems, in each paragraph. So highly recommend. The next book I want to share is The Communist Manifesto by Marx and Engels. I think it's Engels. I should know that. But yeah, Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto. Now, of course, I'm not a communist. However, I think it's extremely important to understand communism from the person who brought it forth. Go right to the source, right? So, personally, the biggest thing that I learned out of this book, was the fact, or is the fact, that they are 100% against private property. Like, that is the root of the root. Any communist that tells you that's not what they're about, then you're not a communist, because communism is about the abolition of private property. So read this book, see for yourself. This edition's pretty cool. This is the Penguin Classics Deluxe edition, and I think all of their covers are like zany like that, which I think it's pretty cool. And it's not big at all. So that will take you a day to read, but it's important to understand communism, and the only way to do that is to go to the source. Speaking of communism, we have the next book, The Gulag Archipelago. This is the abridged version by Aleksandr Solzhenitsyn. Russians know, obviously, all about communism, and this book took me quite some time because it is very dense, full of information and terrible, terrible things that happened in the gulags over in Russia. I'm not Catholic, but my mother-in-law is, and so I watch a lot of Catholic stuff sometimes, and they talk about the errors of Russia in Catholicism, and the errors of Russia have spread. And this book talks about nihilism, narcissism, lying. Ultimately, it's about lying. That's how you get the Gulag. That's how you get the society, the USSR. It's about lying. So do not lie. What does Jordan Peterson say? Tell the truth, or at least don't lie. So I agree with that 100%. I'm sorry, I need to read the back. I'm sitting here chit-chatting about it. It is impossible to name a book that had a greater effect on the political and moral consciousness of the late 20th century. Not only did Solzhenitsyn deliver in historical truth of the Gulag, he conveyed, as no one else did, its demonic atmosphere and the psychology of both the prisoners and the guards, as well as the mark it left on the entire society. Very good book. Again, it took me 6 to 7 months to read this, but it's tabbed up. It's 500 pages, 460, something like that. Please read this. It's important to know what happened in the past so that we can avoid it in the future. This next book is called The Narrow Passage, and this is Plato, Foucault. I should know that. You know what? I have no shame in my game. I'm going to look it up right now. Because I should have done this before, and I apologize. But Foucault. Sorry about that, guys. Foucault and the possibility of political philosophy. Americans are more divided today than any time since the Civil War. Our differences are not merely moral and political, but philosophical and spiritual. We hardly seem to experience the same reality anymore, preferring to self-select into media perception chambers whose projections vary according to political persuasion. Something has gone terribly wrong in America, in the American political community. We have entered an era wherein the federal government's democratically elected officers are powerless in comparison to their unelected bureaucratic counterparts. The old balance of power laid out in the Constitution has been replaced by an entirely new structure. The American regime has become post-constitutional. But what is this post-constitutional arrangement? How does it operate? Who is in charge? Can it be overcome? What role will the Constitution play in the nation's future? So again, this one is teeny tiny, and I am currently reading it, so I can't tell much about it except that so far it is enlightening. It talks about Jesus in here, and I think that's interesting. So again, if any of these pique your interest, I would love to spend a little time reading out of any of them if you are interested. The next book I have is called With the End in Mind by Kathryn Mannix. That sounds more appropriate. And I finished this book, and I read this because I am a caretaker for my mother-in-law. So this is, of course, about death with the end in mind. I think it's really important for us to get a grips. get a grip. I think it's important for us to try to understand that death is a part of life and acknowledge it and try not to avoid it. So I'll read the back. Modern medical technology is allowing us to live longer and fuller lives than ever before. And for the most part, that is good news. But with changes in the way we understand medicine come changes in the way we understand death. Once a familiar, peaceful, and gentle, if sorrowful, transition, death has come to be something from which we shield our eyes, as we prefer to fight desperately against it rather than accept its inevitability. Dr. Kathryn Mannix has studied and practiced palliative care for 30 years. In With the End of Mind, she shares beautifully crafted stories from a lifetime of caring for the dying and makes a compelling case for the therapeutic power of approaching death, not with trepidation, but with openness, clarity, and understanding. Weaving the details of her own experience as a caregiver through stories of her patients, their families, and their distinctive lives, Dr. Mannix reacquaints us with the universal but deeply personal process of death. Absolutely beautiful. Don't read this in public if you don't want to cry in front of people. I'm not a big crier, but I definitely cried in several of these because, of course, death is sad. It's sad when you lose a loved one, but it is a part of life. And so I highly recommend this book, especially in these times. But if you're a caretaker, it's necessary for your psychology, in my opinion. This next book helped me quit smoking, actually. It holds a soft spot in my heart. It's due for a reread for me, but that is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Now, this book is often recommended by individuals in the business world because, as the title suggests, it is about gaining wealth and using your mindset to do that. So that's what the think means. It's a mindset book. And again, this helped me quit smoking because the information in it is extremely valuable when it comes to changing your mindset. And I don't think it even has this version that I have, doesn't have a summary for you. But basically, Napoleon Hill went and talked back in the early 1900s. He went and talked to all these millionaires, maybe even billionaires, Carnegie, J.P. Morgan, so on and so forth. And he asked them, what is it that made them rich, or how did they gain their wealth? He was talking about them and their mindset because they're millionaires, on how their mindset helped them. And so he collected all these stories and he summarized it and put it in here. I could not recommend it more. If you want to quit smoking, read this book. If you want to quit drinking, read this book. And this version looks like a Bible. Somebody's told me that. I love this version. It is a anti-smoking Bible for me. Kind of like do or do not, there is no try. If I had to summarize in a very crude way. All right, this next book is called The Cloud of Unknowing. And it was written in the 14th century by a Christian mystic. And this book is conveying how to meditate through Christianity. So usually when you think of meditation, you think, or at least I do, I think of Eastern cultures, but this is Christian meditation, and it talks about how to get to the Cloud of Unknowing. So the Cloud of Unknowing and the Book of Privy Counseling are the first explorations in the English language of the soul's quest for God. Sorry, give me a second. Still dealing with that slight cold. Sorry about that. Written by an anonymous 14th century mystic, The Cloud of Unknowing expresses with beauty a message that has inspired such great religious thinkers as St. John of the Cross and Teilhard de Chardin, as well as countless others in search of God. Offering a practical guide to the life of contemplation, the author explains that ordinary thoughts and earthly concepts must be buried beneath a cloud of forgetting, while our love must rise toward a God hidden in the cloud of unknowing. The Book of Privy Counseling, also included in this volume, is a short and moving text about achieving enlightenment through both loss of self and consciousness of the divine. So, really, the book that I was recommending here is The Cloud of Unknowing, but both I would recommend. I think it's important to have something higher than mankind in order to aspire to. A compass, a northern star, if you would. But I highly recommend this book, and it won't take you long. It took me probably a month to read it, but I am slower when it comes to nonfiction than I am with fiction. So I think that it's important to try to digest with it when it's nonfiction. Try to take bites and digest them rather than run through it, because then you won't remember everything, or at least I won't. So, next book, another small one. It's called The Power of the Powerless by Václav Havel. And this was written in 1978. His meditation on political dissent, the rituals of its suppression, and the sparks that reignite it, would prove the guiding manifesto for uniting solidarity movements across the Soviet Union. A portrait of activism in the face of falsehood and intimidation, The Power of the Powerless remains a rousing call against the allure of apathy. That is one of the things that I fight the most, is apathy, and so this book really helped me out. Not long at all. This one I ate through. It's very easy to read, well written, but not extremely complex like the Gulag Archipelago in the theme. So the biggest thing that this one taught me is we need to basically come up with parallel societies and be underground until the majority is actually underground, and then it flips. Then the underground becomes mainstream. Highly recommend. Now, I will say that this author, he was at a United Nations meeting back in the 70s. I don't know. I still love the information in here. Perhaps he went to see what it was all about and saw that it was exactly what he fought majority of his life to get out of. But I'll keep going. This next book, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, is one of the outstanding classics to emerge from the Holocaust. Man's Search for Meaning is Viktor Frankl's story of his struggle for survival in Auschwitz and other Nazi concentration camps. Today, this remarkable tribute to hope offers us an avenue to finding greater meaning and purpose in our lives. He was in these concentration camps, and he continued to thrive as best as you can in a concentration camp because of his mindset, because he found meaning whenever possible. And of course, God helped him. I mean, if you read this book, you can't help but know that a hidden hand helped this man, and seems to be in the gulags and in the concentration camps. So you never know. You never really know what. Some people in this book, they thought that God had given them this challenge for a reason, and whether or not that's true, it ultimately doesn't matter in the end, because she believed it was true, and it affected how she conducted her life, and she ended up surviving the camps because of her mindset. So very powerful. I you know, I obviously am recommending all of them, but if you only read one, read this one, because you need hope. This is the most hopeful book that I have on my list. I'm running out of room over here. This next book is way more chill, I guess you could say. Again, I've talked about this once before on my channel. It's To Be a Machine Adventures among cyborgs, utopians, hackers, and the futurists solving the modest problem of death by Mark O'Connell. Now, the people that are trying to solve death, they think death is a disease rather than a fact of life. And of course, I couldn't disagree more. I think with the end in mind is how we should be looking at death, incorporating it more into our lives, like trying to understand it. But these guys are trying to avoid it. And the beginning story starts out with the Arizona it's actually a laboratory. There we go. An Arizona laboratory that has tons of severed heads in cryo chambers. I'm not kidding you. So there are people that pay to have their head chopped off and frozen because they think that they will live forever by downloading their consciousness, which they, I guess, think they're brainwaves or their consciousness. They're going to download the brainwaves to the metaverse in the future when the technology is there. So they literally they pay $200,000 to have their head frozen, chopped off and frozen. It's crazy. The stories in here, Gonzo journalism, he is telling the truth about these people, but he's also living it. That's what Gonzo journalism is. So Hunter Thomas, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, was the first journalist to do that, and it was named after him, Gonzo journalism. But transhumanism, that's what this book is about. Transhumanism is a movement pushing the limits of our biology, of our senses, intelligence, and lifespans with technology. Its supporters have reached a critical mass and now include some of the biggest names in Silicon Valley and beyond. Among them, Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, and Ray Kurzweil. Peter Thiel, by the way, I think I'm going to do a video on him because he's got this company that's all about data, and it's crazy. He's supposed to be a libertarian. In this provocative and eye-opening account, journalist Mark O'Connell explores the staggering and terrifying possibilities that present themselves when you think of your body as an outmoded device. He visits the world's foremost cryonics facility to witness how some have chosen to forestall death, discovers an underground collective of biohackers boosting their senses by implementing electronics under their skin, and meets with members of a team urgently investigating how to protect mankind from rogue artificial superintelligence. In investigating what it means to be a machine, O'Connell shines a light on our ancient desire to transcend the animal condition and offers a surprising meditation on what it means to be a human. Very easy to read. I usually don't give rankings on books because really what's so valuable about books is the information, especially nonfiction. But even fiction, there's a truth to be told in the best of books, and finding that truth and sifting it out is really fun for me. And please read this book if you are into transhumanism. It'll take you no time at all. Very, very easy read. And the back of the book has tons of rabbit holes, tons of different leads into transhumanism and that movement. We live in crazy times, and merging man and machine is just one of the many ethical issues that we're going to have to deal with sooner rather than later. The next book, I am currently listening to it and reading it. It's called Joseph Campbell's The Hero with 1,000 Faces. There we go. And I'm listening to it as well as reading it because this book is difficult. This is like going to a class, okay? It's a very important class because it talks about the hero's journey and narratives. So let's read what we got in here. Since its release in 1949, maybe I should just read it like this. The Hero with 1,000, no, because I'm blocking that. Okay. Since its release in 1949, The Hero with 1,000 Faces has influenced millions of readers by combining the insights of modern psychology with Joseph Campbell's revolutionary understanding of comparative mythology. In these pages, Campbell outlines the hero's journey, a universal motif of adventure and transformation that runs through virtually all of the world's mythic traditions. He also explores the cosmogonic cycle, the mythic pattern of world creation and destruction. It's a very important cycle that I should know how to say, because that's exactly the point of this whole book, is that it's going to teach us the pattern, the mythical pattern of world creation and destruction. Because it's definitely cyclical, this life that we live. Don't you feel that? As part of Joseph Campbell's Foundation Collected Works, this third edition features expanded illustrations. Okay, so if you want to learn about narratives, which I suggest we all do because we should be creating our own narrative to combat that of the United Nations and World Economic Forum's anointed ones. They have a vision, they have a narrative that they are trying to bring forth to manifest in the world. And we can do the same. We have the power if we know that we have the power, if we know how to use it. So I think this is one big step into learning the power that we have, and storytelling, myth building, narrative creating is all a superpower that humans have that we've forgotten about. And running out of room for books, so I'll set them on the ground. Next up, we have this book on power, the natural history of its growth, by Bertrand, oh my goodness, de Yavanel? I'm sorry, look at that. You tell me. Now, this is another one that I am currently reading, and it's going to take me a long time because I'm studying it, basically. This was written right before the 2 nuclear bombs went off over in Japan. And he knew that this was going to happen just based on pattern recognition, right? He talks about power and how and why it is so prevalent in our lives and what it means for the future. And unfortunately, there's no summary on the back. So I don't know what this edition, this is the Liberty Fund edition, but if you want to know about power and why people are so obsessed with it, read this book. The next book, The Socratic Method, A Practitioner's Handbook by Ward Farnsworth. And I love the cover of that book. And another one I'm currently reading. This book, of course, is about the Socratic Method. I think it's really important for us to understand how best to talk to each other, but also to question someone's viewpoint without causing offense. You know, we should be able to question each other's ideas and not be married to the ideas. That way, if we have a bad idea, we can just kill that bad idea and get a good one in. And so the Socratic method is meant to flush out ideas and help us communicate with one another. And I think communication is one of the main problems, one of the, I guess not main, a root problem. Communication is a root problem in today's society. I mean, think about it. I can barely talk to most of my family, unfortunately, unless you want to talk about bread and circuses. But what can you do? The Socratic method is one of the timeless inventions of the ancient world. It is a path to wisdom and a way to think more intelligently about questions. Yeah, I don't know how best to do this. Sorry. It is a path to wisdom and a way to think more intelligently about questions, large and small. It is a technique for teaching others and for talking to yourself. It is an antidote to stupidity, to irrationality, and to social media. It is easy to understand but challenging to master. It is useful for everyone. This book explains the Socratic method in detail, what it is, where it came from, and how to carry it out. The chapters teach the elements of the method step by step with examples from Plato's dialogues. They illustrate how to create Socratic questions of your own. They show how the teachings of the teachings of Socrates produced the philosophies of Stoicism and Skepticism. The book also offers Socratic rules of engagement for talking about politics and other hard things. The Socratic method is a complete guide to the practical use of a great idea. And it's very entertaining. It's well written and educational. So I don't think you can get much more out of a nonfiction book than that. Check it out. We should all learn Socratic method. And the book does put an emphasis on using it on yourself. So when you have an idea, use the Socratic method on that idea. Challenge your beliefs. We all need to do that more, even myself. So we all need to level up, and challenging yourself is exactly how you do it. Now, the last book that I want to share of the 21 books that I have read or am currently reading is The Creature from Jekyll Island, a second look at the Federal Reserve 5th edition. Now, this book, I should keep it held up. This book is, as it says, it's a closer look at the Federal Reserve. It reads like a true crime novel, though, and it's really quite entertaining, even though you are learning about the most evil, corrupt institution that we have. And it answers questions like, where does money come from? Where does it go? Who makes it? The money magician's secrets are unveiled. Here is a close look at the mirrors and smoke machines, the pulleys, cogs, and wheels that create the grand illusion called money. So if you want to know who the wizard behind the curtain is, if you want to know the reason for all of the wars that we've had since 1913, is the central bank. You need to read this book. A boring subject? Just wait. You'll be hooked in 5 minutes. You will be hooked. It like I said, it reads like a true crime, and I'm not even into true crimes, but this one is good. And it reads like a detective story. Ha, it says it right here. Which it really is, but it's all true. This book is about the most blatant scam in history. It's all here. The cause of wars, boom-bust cycles, inflation, depression, prosperity. Your worldview definitely will change. This may be the most important book on world affairs you will ever read. Now, it's a chunker. No doubt about it. You're not going to read this even in a year, possibly, but it's important to get into. And the back of it has doomsday mechanisms, and pessimistic scenario. So these two in the back of the book are worth reading by themselves because it kind of gives you an idea. This was written in the 90s too, and everything that's going on, it's in this book. G. Edward Griffin is the author of this book. He's still alive. He's done a lot of interviews. I highly recommend you check them out because he's a very intelligent man. And if you want to know the root of our problems financially, there's no higher than the central bank. And if you own the money, you own the country. Somebody said it. It's not a direct quote. Like J.P. Morgan, one of them said it. So please check this out. You need to know your enemy. And the central bank is absolutely the one that's going to try to do the great taking and have you own nothing and be happy. So look into that. What do you guys think so far? Any books catching your eye? Let me know. Oh, we're getting to the 3 classics. And then I'm going to share 12 nonfiction books that I am going to be reading, my TBR. The first classic that I want to share with you is called Fathers and Sons by Ivan Turgenev. I love Russian authors, I'm not going to lie. Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, Solzhenitsyn. Ivan Turgenev, though, is my favorite. This book is not very long, and I'm going to read the back. It's because it summarizes it beautifully. This new translation by Richard Freeborn makes Turgenev's masterpiece about the conflict between generations seem as fresh, outspoken, and exciting as it was to those readers who first encountered its famous hero. The controversial portrayal of Bazarov, the nihilist, or New Man, shocked Russian society when the novel was published in 1862. The image of humanity liberated by science from age-old conformities and prejudices is one that can threaten establishments of any political or religious persuasion, and is especially potent at the present time. This book is absolutely beautiful. You will not be able to put it down. I think that you could read it in a day because it's less than 200 pages, or just over 200 pages, but no one writes like Turgenev. Nobody. I mean, gorgeous, flowery, tasty writing. You will get a cup of coffee, get a warm blanket. It's fall. Check this book out. You will not be disappointed. And it's one of the first, or it is the first book with a nihilist protagonist. And I think it's extremely important that we understand the New Man, because it feels to me like the Zoomer generation fits this protagonist perfectly, which is not a good thing. He's very confused, as you will see if you read it. So please check it out. One of my favorite classics, and I'm due for a reread, so I might be picking that up in the next couple weeks. The next book is recommended quite often, but that's for a reason, and that is Animal Farm by George Orwell. Now, this book is about communism, ultimately, but we'll read the back. In his story of a downtrodden society of overworked, mistreated animals and their quest to create a paradise of progress, justice, and quality, George Orwell gave us one of the most scathing, satiric fables ever written. As ferociously fresh as it was more than half a century ago, Animal Farm is a parable about would-be liberators everywhere. As we witness the rise and bloody fall of the revolutionary animals through the lens of our own history, we see the seeds of totalitarianism in the most idealistic organizations and in our most charismatic leaders, in the souls of our cruelest oppressors. All three of the classics that I'm recommending, not very long. They won't take you long, but they're so good and they make you think. And that's the best kind of classic. Now, most of the classics do make you think in one way or another, but these in particular, makes me think of the situations that we're going through now and kind of gives me a perspective. There's nothing new under the sun. These issues have been here before, and they'll probably be here again in the future. But how do we deal with those issues? I think having these books as partners in life helps me. So please check it out. And I really like the cover of this edition. Again, I'll have them all linked down below if you want to check any of these out. And the last classic that I'm going to recommend is C.S. Lewis, The Screwtape Letters. And this book is kind of funny, even though I don't think it's really intended to be, but it is about correspondence between two demons. One is learning how to be a demon, and the other one is an expert demon. And if you don't know anything about C.S. Lewis, he was a Christian apologetic Christian. And I have all of his books. This is the only one I've read so far. But he also wrote The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So you probably heard of that one. He was actually best friends with Tolkien, who wrote Lord of the Rings, which I thought was really cool. So I wish I could be in the room with those two individuals when they're having tea and a chat. I could just imagine the type of conversations they'd have. Two brilliant men. And so let me tell you about the book, at least how they tell you. A positively diabolical correspondence. My dear Wormwood, so begins this product of C.S. Lewis's wickedly funny imagination, a correspondence between two devils, Screwtape and his young nephew, Wormwood. As the senior fiend advises his young apprentice in leading humanity astray, Lewis delves into questions about good and evil, temptation, repentance, and grace, offering knowledge and guidance to all those who are trying to live good Christian lives. I would say good life, good life, whether you're Christian or not. Lately I've been thinking, because I say that I'm not Christian, but I've been thinking of saying I'm Christian and Buddhist and Hindu, kind of like Russell Brand in Forgetting Sarah Marshall, which is one of my favorite movies, but I haven't seen it in a while. It's a little too racy for me to watch in front of my mother-in-law, and I guess I'm just a prude like that. But when I do watch it again, I feel like I definitely relate with that character, and only because I feel like every single religion is trying to share an ultimate truth. It's just different cultures have a different way of expressing truth. So take that with what you will. It doesn't matter. This book is good whether you're Christian or not, and I highly recommend reading it. It is funny. This is October, so I felt like it was a good recommendation for this month as well, since you're talking about devils. All right, so now we're going to get into the books that I want to read myself that I have not yet, and so it's my TBR, but I'm going to share them with you because they're on my TBR, because I think that they're going to teach me something. And so if you want to be taught something, maybe one of these will teach the lesson that you're looking for. The first one is another Solzhenitsyn book, Aleksandr, Warning to the West. Sorry, it's a shiny book. But again, I haven't read it, but this is what it's about. Warning to the West includes the texts of the Nobel Prize-winning author's 3 speeches in the United States in the summer of 1975, his first major public addresses since his expulsion from the Soviet Union in 1974. On June 30th and July 9th, to trade union leaders of the AFL-CIO in Washington, D.C. and New York City, and on July 15th to the United States Congress. Also the texts of his recent BBC interview and radio speech, which sparked widespread public controversy when they aired in London in March of 1976. Solzhenitsyn's outspoken criticism of the West's growing weakness and complacency, and his belief that quite shortly Russia's growing strength will enable her to establish supremacy over the West without risk of a nuclear holocaust, are expressed with the moral authority of a great novelist and historian. As Levin wrote in the Times Literary Supplement, Solzhenitsyn mounts a public indictment of the supine inattention of the West that rings like the blows of a hammer with which Luther nailed his manifesto to the doors at Wittenberg. Very poetic little quote there, but a warning to the West, as the title suggests. He saw that we weren't prepared for Russia, nihilism, narcissism, the errors of Russia. We weren't prepared for them. And he was worried that the West wasn't going to be ready. And we weren't. So I'm interested to see how close his warning is to what reality is now. It was written in the 70s, and that was, 50 years ago? Isn't that crazy? 50 years. And the next book that I want to read next year is called Darwin's Doubt by Stephen C. Meyer, and The Explosive Origin of Animal Life and the Case for Intelligent Design. So this is really funny to me because 10 years ago, I was reading The God Delusion. Maybe not 10, maybe it was in 2009. So that was actually longer than 10 years ago. Wow. Closer to 15 coming up. Okay. So I would read The God Delusion in 2009. I was an atheist and very intellectually arrogant. I thought Christians or anybody really that believed in God was stupid. And I apologize to everybody that I made feel belittled in any way because of their religion. That is not me anymore, and I'm sorry that was, but you have to live and learn, right? Got to level up. So Darwin's Doubt. Charles Darwin knew there was a significant event in the history of life that his theory did not explain. In what is known today as the Cambrian explosion, many animals suddenly appeared in the fossil record 530 million years ago without apparent ancestors in earlier layers of rock. In Darwin's Doubt, Meyer tells the story of the mystery surrounding this explosion of animal life and makes a compelling case for the theory of intelligent design as the best explanation for the origin of the Cambrian animals and the biological information necessary to produce them. This individual has been doing the rounds on podcasts, and he is talking about the origin of life, and he talks to scientists who are studying the origin of life. Very fascinating. That is how I learned about this book. He was even on Joe Rogan, but I wish I could think of the doctor that he talks to that's studying. He's a chemist that is studying origin of life, and he's brilliant, and they have a conversation. So that's how I found this book. I'm really looking forward to learning about, what we may or may not know about intelligent design. And so I'm all for learning about the science. Um, Hopefully I can understand it. It's quite a big book. So the next book that I would like to read coming up is The Green Breakdown, The Coming Renewable Energy Failure by Steve Gorham. I just picked this book up recently, and a lot of these books that I'm showing you that I haven't read yet, I picked up recently, so it's kind of like a mini book haul too. It's pretty cool. It has some charts and stuff in it, but it's talking about net zero. So, are you net zero yet? Cities, states, nations, industries, and businesses eagerly rush to transition from coal, natural gas, and oil to green energy. The world annually spends hundreds of billions of dollars on wind turbines, solar panels, electric cars, heat pumps, and biofuels. But the renewable energy transition is in trouble and headed for failure. So, I'm going to see what information that he has to share, and then I will find the good stuff and hopefully share it with y'all. This one is definitely more about research than about learning, like Darwin's doubt, learning something spiritually important. But I think research is my favorite thing, so hopefully that teaches me something, and again, I can teach you something with it. The next book, Social Justice Fallacies by Thomas Sowell. Which, again, thank you guys for hanging out with me. If there are any books that interest you, let me know. I am always happy to recommend books, and I have way more than 33 to recommend, but, we both only have so much time. But if you like this type of content, booktube videos, then let me know. I am more than happy to nerd out with you guys and share books. It is my favorite thing to do besides research and video games. So Social Justice Fallacies by Thomas Sowell. 2 Thomas Sowell books on here. I think the man's a genius. I'm really into economics, and he actually is a sociology master too, it would seem, because that other book is more sociology than economy. But this just came out. He's 93 years old, and he has 40 books out. This just came out this month. September. It just came out in September. I have not read it yet. It's not very big, so it shouldn't take me long, but his books are full of facts. So it might actually take me long, even though it's small, because it's going to be dense. Even accurate statistics on income trends over time can be grossly misleading when turnover is the proverbial 800-pound gorilla in the room that no one seems to notice. IRS data show that over a 23-year period, there were 4,584 people in the so-called top 400 income recipients. More than 2/3 of those people were in the bracket for just 1 year out of those 23 years. Oh, these are documented facts. I'm sorry. Of course, it's a hardcover, so it's in the inside. The quest for social justice is a powerful crusade of our time with an appeal to many different people for many different reasons. But those who use the same words do not always present the same meanings. Clarifying those meanings is the first step toward finding out what we agree on and disagree on. From there, it is largely a question of what the facts are. Social justice fallacies reveals how many things that are thought to be true simply cannot stand up to documented facts, which are often the opposite of what is widely believed. However attractive the social justice vision, the crucial question is whether the social justice agenda, and that's italicized, will get us to the fulfillment of that vision. History shows the social justice agenda has often led in the opposite direction, sometimes with catastrophic consequences. That's what's going to happen with these visions and the agendas that they have. More things are involved besides simply mistakes. All human beings are fallible, and social justice advocates may not necessarily make any more mistakes than others, but crusaders with an utter certainty about their mission are often undeterred by obstacles, evidence, or even fatal dangers. That is where much of the Western world is today. The question is whether we will continue on heedlessly past the point of no return. So, again, 93 years on this earth, he knows something. Genius. The fact that people don't know about him saddens me. It's just how this world is right now, though. The people that are telling the truth and are combating these visions of Anointed, they get silenced or suppressed. Hoover Institute on YouTube has tons of interviews with this guy, and I'm trying not to blind you with the shininess. Tons of interviews. I highly recommend all of them. Listening to him is so easy and entertaining, and again, you're learning something. So if you're interested in economics at all or sociology, please look into Thomas Sowell. In 93, I don't know if he'll be publishing any more books, but I am so grateful for the 40 that he has published. I eventually want to own them all. Oh, I keep going the wrong way. The next book is You Will Own Nothing by Carol Roth. Your War with a New Financial World Order and How to Fight Back. This one also came out this year, and I'm very much looking forward to reading it. I'm sure you can tell what it's about, but we're going to read this summary real quick. Personal wealth and the freedom and independence that go along with it comes from ownership. So, when Carol Roth first heard that the World Economic Forum, an organization littered with the global elite, was predicting the end of private property ownership in less than a decade, she thought it was a conspiracy theory. Then she did her research. Right out in the open, the World Economic Forum's 2030 predictions included the stark warning under the guise of sunshine and rainbows. You will own nothing and be happy, and that's just the beginning. From killing your purchasing power via monetary and fiscal policy to corporations and investors buying up land and water rights and competing with you when you try to purchase a home, and even big tech's desire to make your life a subscription service, individual ownership is under fire at every turn. You need to fight back. In You Will Own Nothing, Roth reveals how world governments, globalist organizations, big tech, Wall Street, and other powerful elites are proactively trying to control every finite resource and determine who has access to such resources. This book is an essential guide to stopping the elite's agenda and taking charge to preserve your and your family's freedom and wealth. Hey Q, how you doing? Thanks for hanging out. Hopefully one of these books will pique your interest and you will learn something. If you have read any of these books, please let me know down in the comments what you thought of them. And if you have any recommendations of your own, I always love when you share. Please share them with me. I think that this is at the top of my list. Again, for research purposes, I'm sure I know a lot of it because of all the research I have done on the World Economic Forum and United Nations, but you don't know what you don't know. And so my favorite part about books like these is the fact, hello, I can't get my words right, is the fact that we can possibly find new leads, new rabbit holes, new angles to look at the same problem. So I often say the truth is like a cube. I don't have a cube in front of me. I wish I did. But there is an objective truth, but you see the objective truth of the object at a different angle than I do. And I think that if I learned your angle and you learned mine, we'd both be better off than saying, no, your angle's wrong and you need to shut up and be silenced and censored. and my angle is the only angle that's right. I think that that is not helpful to society whatsoever. So hopefully I find a different angle to look at the problem and a different solution as well, because this book says it offers solutions to defending our property rights. So looking forward to it. When I do read it, I will share what I learn. Next, we have The Doctrine of the Lesser Magistrates by Matthew Truella. Now, I got this book and actually listened to this guy speak a couple months ago, thanks to grassroots movements that I've found myself in. And this book is trying to help the lesser magistrates, like your local township boards, fight the corrupt, captured big government. So I think that this, again, I have not read it. I've only listened to the guy's lectures, and which, of course, I recommend. They're very good. He is, I don't know, preacher is the right word, but I'm going to read the back here for you. But I think if you are going up for any kind of position in a local township board or any kind of political position, I think that you should read this book. Again, it is Christian doctrine, but it doesn't matter, because really what matters is the fact that it's teaching you that it is your responsibility to fight evil and to fight corruption, and not to just, lay down to it. Don't let it just happen. America has entered troubling times. The rule of law is crumbling. The massive expansion of federal government power with its destructive laws and policies is of grave concern to many. But what can be done to quell the abuse of power by civil authority? Are unjust or immoral actions by the government simply to be accepted and their lawless commands obeyed? How do we know when the government has acted tyrannically? Which actions constitute proper and legitimate resistance? This book places in your hands a hopeful blueprint for freedom. Appealing to history and the Word of God, he's a pastor, Matthew Truella answers these questions and shows how Americans can successfully resist the federal government's attempts to trample our Constitution, assault our liberty, and to impugn the law of God, the law. The doctrine of the lesser magistrates declares that when the superior or higher civil authority makes an unjust, immoral law or decree, the lesser or lower ranking civil authority has both the right and the duty to refuse obedience to that superior authority. If necessary, the lower authority may even actively resist the superior authority. Exactly. Historically, this doctrine was practiced before the time of Christ and Christianity. It was Christian men, however, who formalized and embedded it into their political institutions throughout Western civilization. I mean, yeah. The doctrine of the lesser magistrate is a historical tool that provides proven guidelines for proper and legitimate resistance to tyranny, often without causing any major upheaval in society. The doctrine teaches us how to rein in lawless acts by government and restore justice in our nation. That sounds so perfect. Every township board member, everybody that's trying to get into politics, I think you should read this. We need to be able to say no to unlawful orders. The Nuremberg trials were correct in when they concluded that you are responsible for your actions. You can't say I was just following orders. That doesn't work. You are responsible. So if someone gives you an unlawful order, you have to say no. You have to have the strength to say no to that higher, superior power. I actually had to do it in the military. It was not easy. Obviously you're trained to accept orders, but and it wasn't like, a crazy unlawful order, something like really dangerous or anything, thankfully. But I was told, and just quick story, I was told I was a staff sergeant close to the end of my career, and I had 5 troops, and one of my troops was a young black guy, 18, 19, I think he was 19, and he just got in, and he was, trying to do something good for his life. Where he came from, it was hard, and a lot of military members, it's like that. And so I wanted to help my troop. He's brand new in the military, and he lost his dorm key. And I know that sounds trivial, but he lost it twice, and they wanted to give him a piece of paperwork for it. And in that time, Obama was clearing house. So if you had a piece of paperwork, you're getting kicked out. The kid was in just out of basic train or tech school, like 6 months at the base, tops. It sucks he made those mistakes, but to give him a piece of paperwork and basically ruin his career, get him kicked out, I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, it's just a dorm key. I will make sure that he understands he needs to be responsible. They say well, if you do that with your dorm key, you'll do it with your gun because we were security forces, so we always carried weapons. Um, so you just leave it somewhere potentially because you can't keep your dorm key. And of course, that jump is ridiculous to a certain extent. Again, I fought it. I said, no, I will talk to him. He's not getting a piece of paperwork though. I thought it would ruin his life, ruin his career. And so it's not exactly what we're gonna have to what we're gonna have to go up against, what we're gonna have to do, the kind of orders that we are gonna be given potentially in the future that we will have to say no to. Obviously, that is very, very mild, but it gave me some practice because it was a senior master sergeant I was talking to. And so that was my first shirt. So telling my first shirt no was not easy, but I knew it was the right thing to do because ruining this young man's career over a dorm key was utterly ridiculous. And he went on to have a very good career. He did his 6 years and he got out honorably. So I'm very grateful that I had the courage to say no and do the right thing. But anyway, we will have to learn to say no when things look wrong to us. Trust what resonates. Do not just follow orders because you are responsible and your soul is is up to you to keep whole. So no one else will come save your soul but you. I keep doing that. Sorry. This way. So the next thing that I want to share with you, a next book, is called Marxism Unmasked, that I would like to read, From Delusion to Destruction by Ludwig von Mises. This presents Karl Marx and his place in the history of ideas, the destruction wrought by his dangerous ideology, the manner in which his followers have covered up his errors, and how the Marxists themselves have worked for so long to save Marxism from itself. Mises discusses Marxist claims about history and refutes the smear of the Industrial Revolution. So this one, not big at all. I don't know much about it except for it got really good reviews. It was recommended by another booktuber, I believe, that I watch. And I'm looking forward to it. I think Marxism and communism, I had the Communist Manifesto on this list as well. I think it's really important that we understand the ideas, and you're supposed to understand all sides of the issue as well as you can. So I'm hoping this will help me I hope this will shed light for me on the issue of Marxism. Next, I'm going to share these two books together, actually, because it's kind of a project that I'm going to have going next year. And that is The Ultimate Resource 2 by Julian Simon and The Limits to Growth by the Club of Rome, which, if you don't know, is a group of elitist intelligentsia that has plans for us. So the reason why I put these two together, it's two different philosophies. This one says that this is pro-human being, huge, but pro-human. This says that we are intelligent and that we can come up with solutions to problems if we have a free market. Humans are good. That's basically. So I will read it. The late Julian Simon led a vigorous challenge to conventional beliefs about scarcity of energy and natural resources, the effects of imagination, and the perils of overpopulation, by arguing that the ultimate resource is the human imagination coupled to the human spirit. Now, Princeton University Press presents this book, The Ultimate Resource 2, a wholly revised and expansion, of the 1881 classic. So, natural resources are not finite in this, and ultimately we can't prove it. Every time they say we're going to run out of oil, there's a new oil well that pops up. So that's not to say we can't be clean about it, but energy is not something that we should be limiting. It's something that everybody, cheap energy for everybody is how we get people out of poverty. That's how we get people to care about the trash in the ocean. If you are worried about your next meal or a warm bed, then you're not going to worry about the trash in the ocean. It's just a fact. But if you have cheap energy and you have a dishwasher, you have all these things, you have time to think about the trash in the ocean and clean it up. So I am for making energy as cheap as possible, which is about supply and demand. We need to pump the supply up, not to cut it off like we're doing. Now, limits to growth is the opposite, of course, of this book. This says that resources are finite and that humans suck and that we don't know how to manage resources, so these elitist pricks are going to do it for us. That's basically what this is. The Club of Rome thinks that they know best, they know how to handle the resources and to manage them. And the hubris of that is what kills tens of millions of people, billions potentially, to think that a small group of people can control all of the resources. And the fact that they're even trying, again, ignorance or malevolence. That's what we got to ask ourselves. So, in 1972, 4 young scientists at MIT wrote The Limits to Growth, which shocked the world and became an international bestseller. Using the World 3 computer model, garbage in, garbage out with computer models, the authors looked toward the future, for the first time showing the consequences of unchecked growth on a finite planet. 2 assumptions right there. That the fact that we would have unchecked growth and the fact that the resource is a finite planet. Those are assumptions that they can't prove, but that is the basis for all their stupid freaking ideas. Now, armed with 30 additional years of data, these authors sound the alarm on humanity's devastating effects on climate, water quality, fisheries, forests, and other implemented resources. This is the justification for everything they're doing, from electric cars to the illegal immigration at the border, which the United Nations is involved in. I'm going to do a video on it. This is all a byproduct of this book right here and this idea that humans suck and they know best. It's awful, but I'm going to read both of these next year, and I'm going to compare and contrast, and it's kind of like a self homework assignment. I'm going to learn. Now, this next one's a little weird. It's a little niche, but it is Béchamp or Pasteur, a lost chapter in the history of biology by Ethel Hume. This book is about terrain theory versus germ theory, which someday I would like to talk, but maybe after I read this, I will talk to you about it. But let's see, I don't think it has a summary, so I'm just going to have to... Let's see, actually, wait. Yeah. This volume contains new editions of 2 books which have been available only sporadically in the decades since their publication. Pearson's Plagiarist Impostor was originally published in 1942 and is a succinct introduction to both Louis Pasteur and Béchamp and the reasons behind the troubled relationship that they shared for their entire working lives. The reader will soon discern that neither Peter... Okay. I'm just going to tell you. So, terrain theory is basically that the terrain around your body is your responsibility. The germs that are found within your terrain are a byproduct of the terrain around you. So, basically, your health is your responsibility. If you eat healthy, you exercise, you are less likely to get sick because you are taking care of your terrain. If you do not take care of it, you will have a lot more disease. Disease is a byproduct. Germ theory says the germ is what causes the disease. And that is the prevalent theory that we go by right now. Without germ theory, there is no pharmaceutical industry, at least there's no vaccines. Vaccines are only possible because we adhere to the theory of germs, that they cause disease rather than are a byproduct of it. Now, Béchamp is the one that said that terrain theory is real, and he actually found all the science that Pasteur stole. So I'm really interested to see the history of these two gentlemen. We all know about pasteurization, right? So he obviously won the war between these two ideas, but that doesn't necessarily mean it was the right thing that won. Just like Tesla versus Edison, the AC/DC thing. The reason why Edison won and became famous and rich and everything else is because his idea, you could put a meter on it, and JP Morgan wanted to put a meter on energy. Tesla's idea was free, and JP Morgan doesn't like free because he wants to rule the world, right? He wants his family to rule the world. So Béchamp, unfortunately, I think had the truth. And to me, and this is just me, in my opinion, it makes a lot more sense. Terrain theory does, because if you are meant to love your neighbor, but your neighbor could harbor little germs that you can't see, that makes you scared of your neighbor, and fear leads to anger, leads to hate. So to me, it makes more sense. It's more, it's closer to intelligent design for your body and your terrain, and you are responsible for your health, not anybody else. It also makes sense to me because I've been sick, and my husband and my 88-year-old mother-in-law have not been sick. So if germ theory was correct, we would all be sick. But I'm going to read this book. I'm going to find out more, because you never know. You don't know what you don't know. Transhumanism, the history of a dangerous idea. Of course, I'm interested in the history of transhumanism because I think merging of man and machine is, again, one of the most dangerous things that we're going to have to deal with ethically, morally, the works. And this coming fast. Like, I just read a story about the monkeys that Elon Musk used to put Neuralinks in their heads, a chip in the brain. And it's awful what happened to those monkeys, but the fact is, he is trying to do that to us. They want to put a chip in our brains. That is transhumanism. Transhumanism, I'm going to read the back really quick, is a recent movement that extols man's right to shape his own evolution by maximizing the use of scientific technologies to enhance human physical and intellectual potential. While the name is new, the idea has long been a popular theme of science fiction, featured in films such as 2001: A Space Odyssey, Blade Runner, the Terminator series, and more recently The Matrix, Limitless, Her, and Transcendence. However, as its adherents hint at in their own publications, transhumanism is an occult project rooted in Rosicrucianism and Freemasonry, and derived from the Kabbalah, which asserts that humanity is evolving intellectually towards a point in time when man will become God. Modeled onto the medieval legend of the Golem and Frankenstein, they believe man will be able to create life itself in the form of living machines or artificial intelligence. Spearheaded by the Cybernetics Group, the project resulted in both the development of the modern computer and MK Ultra, the CIA's mind control program. MK Ultra promoted the mind-expanding potential of psychedelic drugs to shape the counterculture of the 1960s, based on the notion that the shamans of ancient times used psychoactive substances equated with the apple of the tree of knowledge. And as revealed in the movie Lucy, through the use of smart drugs and what transhumanists call mind uploading, man will be able to merge with the internet, which is envisioned as the endpoint of Kabbalistic evolution, the formation of a collective consciousness or global brain. That awaited moment is what Ray Kurzweil, a director of engineering at Google, refers to as the singularity. By accumulating the total of human knowledge and providing access to every aspect of human activity, the internet will supposedly achieve omniscient, omniscient, oh my gosh, I'm just going to skip it. I can normally say it. Becoming the god of occultism, or the Masonic all-seeing eye of the reverse side of the American dollar. So That is my prediction, actually, is that when we talk about the one world order, that's just government. Then you have one world currency, which is going to be the central bank digital currency if they have their way, and then one world religion. That religion is transhumanism. It is that man is God and that we are going to have to force evolution because it's not coming fast enough. It is, again, the new religion, and it's a very Luciferian type of religion. So dangerous, but important to understand. And because I am younger, I'm going to have to deal with the consequences of merging man and machine. Well, unless I don't survive the coming trials and tribulations, which is completely possible. But until then, I'm going to keep on trucking. So, I have 2 more books. Really, this right here, The Blackwell Companion to Natural Theology, is, again, it's kind of like a textbook. This is the biggest on the list. The Creature from Jekyll Island, I think, might be just as big. They're close. Now, this is something that I think everybody should study, and it's about intelligent design. So, the last few decades have witnessed a stunning resurgence of philosophical interest in God and theology. Although much of this renaissance is focused on the rationality of belief apart from evidence, there is a gathering movement in philosophical circles to reestablish natural theology's legitimate role in justifying belief in God's existence. The Blackwell Companion to Natural Theology gathers together original contributions from a variety of leading philosophers to provide a timely and thought-provoking exploration of the nature and existence of God, as manifested in the existence, order, and character of the natural world. Each of the in-depth essays explores at length a particular theistic argument, from contingency and consciousness to reason and religious experience, with the distinguished authors providing analysis and evaluation of each argument, offering original insights and new perspectives on personal questions. So, I'm not going to Oxford or Harvard anytime soon, and I never would, actually, because they're captured entities, but I don't have to. Now I can watch a Oxford theologist, or, I can go online on YouTube and I can watch what people are paying big bucks for. And I can also go to books like this and I can study for myself and have people giving their insights as well, which is why I bought this book, is because it's not only the text, but also how you can interpret it from a couple different experts. So I kind of feel like I have a couple professors that are helping me out. That's the idea anyway. So, because this is complex stuff, definitely not going to be reading this. It might take me more than a year, but it's something that you kind of digest slowly, right? Take in a chapter or two, think about it, see how it fits into your worldview, and see how you can possibly use these arguments for or against intelligent design. So, that is all that I have. That's the 36 books total. Now, I am going to mention this book because I actually interviewed the author, Seamus Pendragon, The Land of the Free, Home of the Brave, and Other BS. And this, again, it's a local author here in Michigan, so I saved the best for last. I did an interview with him. It's been quite some time since that interview, unfortunately. I am editing it, and I'm terrible at editing. That's why I live stream, one of the many reasons. But look out for that. It should come out in the next week. And we had a great conversation. This book, I'll read the back. This book is a compilation of much of what I and others see as negative trends in the country, primarily the degradation of liberty and the confusion of privileges for freedom. The divisions that are the biggest hindrances to progress are examined at length, fresh new theories and proofs of what most Americans would scoff at, if not backed by proof provided by the author. It is a call to educate the citizen and prompt action from those no longer satisfied to sit on the sidelines, true patriots actively involved, and the Process of Freedom and the Active Criticism of the Nation. I thought it was very good. It's his first book, and he went down several rabbit holes that I think are really important for us to look into. So look out for that interview that I did with him. It's the first author interview and probably the last for a while. Again, the conversation was great, but it's really hard for me to edit, and I think I'm going to stop paying for the editing software after this month. So I don't know about you. If you ever tried to edit a video, wow. To all you editors out there, I don't know how you do it. That stuff's crazy. Takes forever. I'm almost done with it, but at least 10, 15 hours of like actual solid work. Anyway, please check that out. Once again, let me know. Are there any books on this list that you think sound really intriguing, that you're going to pick up really soon? Let me know if any of them you have read before and what lessons that you learned that maybe changed you as a person. Because I'm always looking for, again, information that will help me become a better person. That's really what I want. I want to learn what's going on in the world, and I want to try to do the best within the world. So, if you like this type of content, if you want me to do another book video, book recommendation video, please let me know in the comments. I have a lot of books. The last 5 years, I've been cultivating my library since I settled down here in Michigan, and I love sharing them with you because I'm a book nerd. So, thanks for hanging out. I will see you guys on Monday. I'll see you guys on Monday. Take care.